What's up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Military Radio Podcast with another episode of Vintage Cult Cinema. Today's special guest is my good friend Anthony Jordan from Anthony Jordan Movies and Gaming. Thank you, sir, for being here today.
I came in when you did this last week. I came in late on it, but I want to say I think that might be your best intro yet.
Yes. I always appreciate when people love my work. Try to anyway. Yeah, I try my best. Certainly, sometimes when you watch things over and over, you're like, man, if I would have just moved this clip here or here, but I guess I'm just not OCD enough for that. But it works. I think it works. But it's a lot of fun putting that stuff together. And some of those clips we'll be seeing movies down the line, of course. Today's entry, of course, for Mr. Jordan and I is 1981's Heavy Metal movie, animated adult science fiction anthology film with some guest voices from Jack Burrows, John Candy, Joe Flaherty. I think even Harold Ramis is in there, John Vernon. So just off the top, like you had never seen this before, correct?
No.
So what was your kind of your first impression, or what was your knowledge going into this before you even saw it?
Well, basically, I did like know it from the cover at the video store in the 90s, but just not being too big into anthology films, I was never really that interested.
Well, before we dive into our review full throttle, let's go ahead and just review the trailer for the film in case those who have not seen it also want to get an idea of what it's kind of about. So here is the theatrical trailer for 1981's Heavy Metal.
Columbia Pictures presents Heavy Metal. A trip beyond the future to a universe you've never seen before. A universe of mystery. A universe of passionate fantasies. A universe of terrifying evil. A universe of magic. Heavy Metal. Heavy Metal, a step beyond science fiction.
And there you go. So basically, kicking off this anthology, we see this. You saw this kind of in the trailer. The shuttle, space shuttle, has a guy in a Corvette, an astronaut who comes in a Corvette, and he's basically floating down back to Earth through this Corvette. One thing that drives this movie is, of course, the rock soundtrack, which it has a little bit of metal and more Black Sabbath's like your heaviest metal band, but for the most part, it's all just heavy hard rock bands from the 70s and 80s, like driving it. What'd you think of the soundtrack?
I thought it was interesting. Like, I was surprised to hear Journey in there.
Open Arms, yeah. Yeah, that was there's some, and the thing is too, some of the like when I look at the bands and I'm saying to myself, well, the soundtrack's great, but like I know I have a lot of favorites from some of these bands. I don't even these songs, but they seem to work pretty well with the animation that's going on.
Well, that's the thing about like music in a movie. Like, I can even like separate. I may not like this music, but it works for this movie. Like, to bring up another movie, I don't really like grunge rock, but for The Crow, it just works, and you can't put any other music in that film and improve it. And it's the same way with this, even if every piece of music may not be for me, it just works for where it's used.
Yeah, I kind of said that when I did the trailer reaction for the Crow remake, and I was like, one thing I brought up then, I was like, it's going to be imperative about how the soundtrack is because obviously we have a more modern audiences and it's different than the 90s alternate rock and grunge era. But for the original, that soundtrack works so exceptionally well. But when I saw the trailer, because I had not seen the remake yet, but the trailer, the music doesn't really move me as much as that music back then for that particular thing. Just like this this movie here, the rock fits the era. So like I don't know, it's and of course this isn't a remake, so that helps that it's an original piece. Um, but yeah, so the movie kind of opens up. This astronaut leaves the space shuttle to come back down to Earth in his vet. It's got a nice little rock and intro. He goes to this house that looks like it might be out in the middle of nowhere, Montana or something, but cornfields or whatever. But he's got a big house. He gets there. He's got this briefcase with something in it. And of course, he has a young daughter who's coming down to greet him. And she's like, "Hey, you got something for me, daddy, from space or whatever." And it's kind of a weird opening because he says he has something for her. But once he opens it up, we have this like green sphere that's there. And so he goes to pick it up and basically maybe give it to her, which I don't know if it was playing dormant for the entire time leading up to this, or because he didn't, if he would have known about it, he wouldn't have given it to her. So I had to figure it was just something he thought was like a green jewel or something. But it ends up consuming him. Like it's almost like it evaporates him on Pontic. You see the skeletal remains like, vaporize, and this sphere like starts floating and goes towards the girl, and it's basically the way they kind of describe it, it's almost like incarnated evil wrapped up in this sphere ball. What are your thoughts about how it opened up?
It was like interesting and hooking, like right off the bat, like that the style that space shuttle was animated in was very striking and unique. And then to see a muscle car drop out of the ship to Earth, like it does engage you right away. And then to see that like evil idea of evil, whatever it is, thing come out and just turn the guy to bones, then nothingness was just. It was a very extremely strong start. I'll give it that.
Yeah. So yeah, so we start out with that, and then what ends up happening? The sphere is telling the girl that she's in a long line of those that would oppose what it is. So she represents good, he represents evil, at least the sphere does. And so it's asking her to look into it and look at some of the past things that the sin or evil would consume over ages. And so one of the first things we get sent to a time in 2031 where New York is it's the anthology segment's called Harry Canyon. He's a cab driver, and even in this time in the future, he's dealing with people that are trying to like kill him or rob him, and so he's got this nice little switch by his accelerator where he hit it and like disintegrate people behind him in the back seat in case he runs into that problem. The first thing I noticed about this, watching it again for the first time in a long time, is how much this looks like the premise that Fifth Element took when it did its thing. Did you ever catch that? The flying cars and stuff like that. Like it reminded me so much of what Fifth Element did, which is kind of cool. The only difference is the cab in Fifth Element could fly. This one couldn't. This one was still grounded compared to some of the other stuff that was going on. But Harry ends up picking up a girl who's running away from some thugs who, because her father discovered that sphere out while he's an archaeologist, so he discovered the sphere and was at a museum when he was shot and killed because they're trying to take it or buy it or whatever. So she goes and she's jumping in the cab but passes out, and Harry takes her home and they have a little hanky panky, real nice. Do you want to take it from there and kind of explain some of what happens with it?
Well, he he wakes up and she's gone and the cops are there. And they're like, you bet if you see her again, you better tell us or you're in a world of pain. And then when he gets in the cab, the mobsters show up and same thing threaten him. So like he's obviously in a world of trouble already.
What'd you think of the animation that you had seen in this?
The animation for this one I feel like was kind of hit or miss. And especially compared to some of the later ones, it's just not as like smooth and fluid. Like you can tell which ones they spent more money on than others, and this felt like one of the lower budget ones.
Yeah, and probably I don't know if part of it is like did they have different animators for different segments, or were like if you were to take these from the magazine, like were they supposed to look a certain way compared to other ones? So I never really figured out if it was just different animators doing different things throughout the movie, because it's kind of like any kind of anthology, you might have different directors doing something. So I'm wondering if certain animators were in charge of certain parts of this story. I don't really know. I didn't find any information on that, but it would be interesting to see what that comes up to if that's the case. But yeah, so Harry has this girl, and she finds out that these thugs want to pay her like 300 space bucks, 300,000 space bucks or something for this sphere that's in a thing. And she wants Harry to help her, and so he'll do it as long as that he gets like 50% of the cut. You know, he figures they're a team now because they banged and all that shit. So they meet up, and immediately after they do their swap, they get their money. But the main thug dude who gets the sphere like opens it up and decides, oh, I'm going to touch this. And then he fucks himself up. It just disintegrates him entirely. Like it did the first guy, the astronaut. So then we get back to Harry, and he's like excited. He wants to, drive off to a vacation somewhere there. And then she's got other plans. So she puts a gun to his head and says, yeah, I think I'm just going to keep it for myself. And he's like, you sure about that? And he just hits a little button next to his accelerator, and she's gone. She's toast. That's it. So he gets the money anyway. But it just shows you like you can't trust anybody, even in that time period.
I
In the
did find
future.
the one part funny in that when he mentioned the UN building is now low rent housing.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to say this because I there's some interesting trivia to this stuff. So obviously, as I mentioned, despite the title of the movie, soundtrack has very little heavy metal bands outside maybe Sabbath, but the rest of them are pretty much hard rock. So that's something that isn't really equated to the soundtrack, but still, even for my time period, I would have called that stuff heavy metal because I didn't know any better at that time. But the other thing is apparently this film is one of Elon Musk's favorite films, and one of his I guess he has a Tesla called the Starman, where it has a Falcon launch or something on it. And it's identical to the Corvette with the astronaut. So he used like influence from that film to one of his cars, which I found interesting. And I guess that was in 2018. So I had to kind of look that up just to see if I can catch it. But it's kind of cool. So then it's gonna again. It comes back to our young girl in the sphere, and it's again saying, yeah, anyone who's ever messed with me or whatever, gets influenced or killed by me in one way or another. But then we go to the segment called Den, which is voiced by John Candy. And this one, the sphere is basically saying, sometimes I was worshipped. And this is how we're going to kind of unravel this new segment where Dan is basically a young 18-year-old boy who's kind of goofing around with experiments in his bedroom, and then somehow ignites himself or sends himself to a different world. And in the process, it changes his appearance. So he's, instead of like this geeky looking teen, he's now like this big, dark, bulky, bald headed dude and strong as hell. Uh, and so he's in this different part of the universe, and he comes across this girl who's being sacrificed by this female. I don't know what you would call her, queen or whatever. Yeah, and so basically they have this scepter that they have the green orb on, and so she's trying to somehow conjure something from this pool of blood or something to come up and give her power. So she's going to sacrifice this girl, and Den ends up saving her, and then they end up talking, and she's apparently from Earth too. So somehow she managed to get there. We don't know how, but she got there where he is, and so they're kind of just getting ready to do the hibbity dibbity. And all of a sudden, some people come up, not people, but these creatures that stand on a couple of legs, like lizards and shit, that capture them, take them to this other guy. So, do you want to describe this segment a little bit?
So this was probably one of my favorite ones because it felt like it could easily be expanded into a full movie.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he gets captured and they take him to their, I guess you can say, king, leader. I'm not sure, but he's like, "Where's the girl? Where's the girl?" And he finds she's in like suspended animation. He fights these guys off, which is also another thing. He's become like an expert warrior.
Yeah.
And then he threatens to shoot the guy. And the guy's like, "Oh, so you'll kill me?" And he's like, "Go ahead, do it." And he like shoots him and the bullets do nothing. So he's like, "Here's the deal. You want her back? I want you to go to where you came from and get the scepter and bring it to me." So it's like setting up what you think would be a classic a heist story on its own, but it's again pretty good stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah. And funny thing about I guess he's like an emperor who very Roman or Greek like. And so he's got the robes on or toga and very sort of femme like in some ways, at least from an impression that I got. Like he isn't really interested in just one sex. So he does seem like he kind of goes both ways, but he's very flamboyant. And we see that when he wrestles around with the queen for the scepter later. They're kind of catfighting, which is kind of funny.
It was like two kids fighting over a toy.
You're right. And so yeah, so Dan goes on his way to try to get the scepter, but obviously he's seduced by the queen, and then the scepter gets taken, of course, by the emperor and his goons, to which he's trying to take power now. And then, of course, they get in a fight over the scepter, which ends up blowing up or something, or at least conjuring something that just destroys them all. And Dan and the girl that he saved earlier, they get away on like a bee or something. It's like flying bee they can bug or whatever. So he ends up saying he doesn't want to go back to Earth. He likes where he's at now. So that's kind of a weird thing, just from the sense that, like, did he not care about his parents? Or I guess he was just too happy getting laid. He's like, man, twice in one day. This is great.
I do like, though, that it shows like that stone or whatever it is isn't all consuming. Like you still have freedom of choice to use it or reject it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then again, we get back to our original girl with the sphere, like beginning to tell her more and more stories. It says, you keep watching this stuff. I'm showing you why you can't defeat me, and why at the end of this I'm going to kill you. Like it's already planned on destroying this girl, but it wanted to show her why it's so powerful and strong. So then we go to the segment called Captain Stern, which this is hilarious for me, but you got this captain who's on trial for many offenses. He's really like a pompous prick.
Yeah,
So you got all these people
so
in the
many
audience.
offenses to the point the lawyer tells him, "Look, you need to plead guilty. The best we can get you is buried in secret so they won't desecrate your grave."
Right? It's like you gotta beg for mercy. And he's like, not guilty. And then everyone loses their shit. And then he starts telling his lawyers, like, I got an angle. So the angle is, of course, a guy named Hanover Fist, which is hilarious. But he ends up finding this pebble that's a green little ball, and that's of course our little sneaky piece of sin that we've been talking about. So it's managed to make its way into this spaceship or space station. This is where they're all at. And so Hanover Fist picks it up, and he's going to testify on behalf of Stern. So he's up there, and he starts telling everybody how Stern saved his life, and Stern's this great dude, and whatever. But he's playing with the little ball between his fingers while he's testifying. And all of a sudden, whatever's in the ball is starting to make him tell the truth. It's almost like a true sermon, and it's also transforming him into angry he gets. So he starts saying, yeah, you know, Stern's really good, except for all those boys he touched, those little boys he touched. And then he gets angry and starts growing into this humongous, like Hulk-like dude. He's like, I'd rather just kill him. We should just kill the guy.
He basically became copyright-free Hulk.
Yeah. So then we just have this like big chase throughout the space station where Stern is trying to avoid being killed by this huge dude that's just hulked out. And do you want to explain how the end happens? Because I always thought that was the funniest part.
Well, you see, as he's running through, like it's doing damage to the station, and you think he's like trying to escape for his life, but then he gets cornered and just hands the guy money. And the dude like turns back to normal. Then he flicks a switch, jettisoning the guy into space, which I don't know what good this really did him. He'll still technically be wanted until they confirm he's dead.
Yeah. So eventually when Fisk catch up with them, Stern kind of outsmarts him, just says, hey, all right, here's your 3,000, head over. And then Hanover like calms down and he gives him the money. But then Stern says, you know, some smart ass remark and then hits a switch and Fisk falls into space and disintegrates basically. And his hand is, you know, cut off at that point. And you see the little green orb within his fingers, which then goes back down to the planet or whatever. And probably my favorite segment of this is the B-17. Where we have like these fighter planes, bombers flying through the sky. They're being attacked from the ground and knocking out their propeller. And then some of the guys that are in those like old school bubble where the machine guns are. I always love those. Yeah. Being killed. And the two pilots are trying to pilot, and then they drop their bombs and try to get away to safety. But as one of the pilots goes to check in on the rest of the crew to see what the damage is, he finds that they're all dead, but then he sees like this floating green orb following the plane, to which, you know, he tells the main captain, like, yeah, there's something weird going on here. He ends up getting knocked out because some pipes or something fall on him from within the plane itself. And then the orb comes in and basically reanimates the dead corpses. And so when he wakes up, he doesn't see any of the bodies. He's like, what the fuck? You know, what's going on? So he checks one of the turrets and then gets drug in there, and all you hear is a bunch of screaming and horror. And then all of a sudden you see blood on the window of the turret. And then that's basically the captain of the plane's like, well, what's going on now? So he's throwing on autopilot, opens the door, but there's like a skeletal remain of one of his crew that's trying to attack him. So he ends up jumping out with a parachute, and go ahead and take it from there.
I want to say off the bat, this one really felt like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
But this is might be my favorite too, but not much happens from there. They crash on this small island, and you see a bunch of downed planes, and again, the bodies start reanimating, and that's the end of the captain. It was short, sweet, but it was a really, really fun ride the whole way through.
Yeah, one thing I did like about this too was, so once he's parachuted out, he lands on this island, and I didn't really catch it at the time, but after looking at some of the trivia about it, there's a sequence there when he's on the island where you see Amelia Earhart's plane, and it's identifiable because of the antenna and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, you talked about that other where Den would have been a good full length movie. I think making a horror film, kind of dealing with Amelia Earhart's plane being lost on some little island where it's like, sort of like zombies and shit. That'd be kind of cool,
Yeah, that
to be
would.
honest. Because if you kind of tie that in a little bit, maybe the Bermuda Triangle and stuff like that, that might be kind of cool if they can do a really good job with that. So I like the idea that presents, because I didn't catch the Amelia Earhart plane there, so that's really cool. But yeah, I thought this segment, very horrifying as a kid. Even I was probably about 11 or 12 when I saw this. So certainly, I would love to see something more fleshed out with this. Let's see. Then we go on to our next segment, which is So Beautiful and So Dangerous. And this one's another one. It kind of jumps around between serious and joking, like fun. Then we're back to.
I feel like between this two, maybe they ran out of budget and there was like supposed to be another one of those bridge scenes in between them.
Yeah, maybe, because they do say that some stuff that they had planned for it, they never made it into it. Like I know there's like on my the DVD that I have, like there's actually a rough cut of the film. I haven't watched it, but when I started watching it, it looked like it was in black and white. So I'd have to go and see how the rest of the film looks. But I'd be curious how that looks. I don't think I've ever watched the rough cut version of it. But the next segment is called So Beautiful and So Dangerous. And this one's kind of funny because we have the shot of the Pentagon and the world is kind of like reeling because they believe that aliens are invading the planet and like, kind of merging their way into humanity in some sort of form. So they've got this meeting where I forget the name of the dude's Dr. Anrak. I think that's the guy that's supposed to like give all the information. And he walks in, he's trying to put everybody at ease. Like, yeah, it's nothing big, no problems. There's no aliens. And meanwhile, this is going on. We get this big ass spaceship that looks like a happy face that's like hovering over the Pentagon. And for whatever reason, Anrak, he catches the secretary or whoever the girl is that does all the typing for what they're saying inside this meeting. And she's wearing like a nice blouse with this little green pendant. And so the pendant starts glowing. So again, I think that's a symbolism of the sphere and the sin that's there. And Anrak, he just starts freaking out. He's like, great looking chick. Yeah, chick. So he starts running at her, trying to rape her. And we find out, he and this tube comes from the ship down into the Pentagon, sucks both of them up. And when it gets to the ship, Anrak is discovered to be like a robot that malfunctioned. Like he just went crazy or whatever and busted into pieces. And then the chick comes down and we have three characters. We have two like alien looking dudes and they're kind of dopey druggies. And then we have this robot genius that's talking shit a lot to them. And so he sees the girl and she's all like, yeah, I gotta go back down there. I gotta change my clothes. And like, never mind, she's on a spaceship. But what did you think about this as it's unfolding?
This was this was my like least favorite. It was like where we had one before that was like played for laughs. I feel like the humor with that really landed, but with this one, it didn't really land with me. And like, not much happened. Like, her and the robot sleep together to the stoners crash land the spaceship, and that's about it. There isn't much to write home about here.
Yeah, I thought some of the funnier parts were just, the robot guys like, yeah, here, let's go get you cleaned up. And when, next thing we know, they're laying in bed and smoking cigarettes. And I guess she just had robot sex or something. And he's all talking about, hey, you want to go steady? You want to get married? And I'm just like, that's crazy. What is going on here? But yeah, so that's part. But then the other two dudes, they're kind of funny because they're driving in. They're like, well, let's get some of this stuff out. and they got this big machine. It looks like a fucking ice cleaner, and it goes out and it's putting out lines of coke or whatever the drug is they're using. And then they just start snorting it up with their little snort noses or whatever, and driving crazily throughout space like they're on high as fuck, you know. But it's pretty interesting. Nevertheless, I think a lot of times, which is funny because they talk about how with some of the male characters they didn't go full nude. So like even with Den, when he first transforms, he's naked, full blue naked, but they don't show anything. And then he takes the loincloth, of course, and puts it around him. But for the females, they didn't mind like showing everything if they could. So it's kind of funny. I think this was more definitely generator geared toward young teen boys and men in general, just in terms of appeal, compared to, you know, women at the time. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the next segment is the last one we have, and that is called Tarna, and she's mainly the main main deal here with
He's
the
on
movie.
the DVD cover and the poster.
Yeah, yeah. So she's the one there. I think she's one also you probably see in most of the heavy metal magazines covers throughout those times too, I think. I can't really verify that. I don't know if it's just different females, but they've always had like a strong female barbarian type person on their covers for the most part. But basically what this now deals with is you have this I don't know if it's just like a different planet or the same planet, but this group of people from a city end up getting washed over this green gook, which is basically more sin, and they transform. They got green skin. They become evil, and they're led by who is the main dude here? Is it Mavar Moore? I can't remember. No, he's the elder. I can't remember what the name villain is. His name was.
This one is where you can clearly tell most of the budget went into.
Yeah, and it's hard, but it's also the setup for the final act too. So, but so the main guy, you know, he's got like this robotic arm that can be like a blade or a spin blade, whatever. But he's kind of like they call him like the preacher or leader cult, whatever. And they just start eradicating different cities, basically becoming like mercenaries and just killing people for the hell of it, barbarians. And this happens over a period of time. They end up killing some elders of this religious sect in this one city, to where they now have to decide to call upon Tarna, which she's part of. What is the group they call them? Tarkanians. So Tarkanians are basically a type of people they got these markings on their necks where they protect the innocent, and whenever they're called upon, they should show up. But there aren't many left, and Tarna is really the last one. So the elders get together, they do their little chants, and they call upon for Tarna to come help them out. So we do get this segment where she's preparing to help out, you know, put on her clothes, wash herself. She's got a nice little birdie that she flies. But meantime, the town that these elders are in are just getting obliterated and killed. I like a lot of the death scenes in here are pretty cool. What did you think about the bar scene when Tarna first arrives after seeing the elders?
Well, it's a classic scene setup that's been done like several times before, where you have the main character go into a bar and you have some of the thugs like, oh, this person's easy picking, and they just get either humiliated or slaughtered. But I thought, again, it was a pretty good like setup. This one, I do think it may or may not be my favorite, but I do think the pacing in this one was the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she comes in and she's got a medallion from one of the barbarians that dropped it when they killed the elder. So she's looking for information from the bartender. Of course, there's three of the barbarians inside the bar trying to like rough up people and stuff, and they see her and like, oh yeah, we're gonna fuck with the half naked woman with the sword. Like that's a good idea. So they go and they try to start trouble. Obviously, they get wasted, and then Tarna gets her information. But as she tries to seek out this barbarian group, she gets captured. She's strung up nude, and for a short time, the bird gets loose because they were going to try to kill the bird she came with, and that got loose and helped her out and saved her. So, which basically leads to our final fight in the pit there with her and this leader, this cult. And for the most part, one thing I did like is like a couple of times when he cut her, you can see the shock on her face, like she kind of maybe worried that she might not win this, which is good. I like the expressions they put on her for different things, even when she's pissed off, etc. So eventually, he's getting ready to actually finish her off, and the bird bites his leg because the bird's like pretty much mortally wounded at this point. But
the scene before that, it was sad when it like got stabbed, shot in the neck with the harpoon, and she's like comforting it.
Yeah. So there's like this close kinship with the creature that she has. But he manages to bite this dude in the leg and stops him from killing her, to which she gets up and takes his own little blade, twisty blade, or whatever the fuck it is, and stuffs it in his neck, which is nice. And I think that's sort of what led to the change of our final act, because once she kills him, it changes history. So I was like, I don't think the Sin Sphere expected this to happen when it was trying to boast about itself to this little girl in this house. So
I kind of get, was that like going on? Was this one like it showing her like things that are currently happening?
Well, I think a lot of it was past, but I think what happened is either that segment with the final act or with Tarna is either what has yet to happen, or at some point there was some sort of like inherent will between the little girl and Tarna, where Tarna in that space knew that this little girl was in trouble and that she might be the last of their kind. So that was what made it kind of cool, because Tarna, maybe in a different universe, would not have sacrificed herself like she did, but maybe knowing that she can change the history of the future, did that. So I don't know. I'd have to really deep dive into like people's theories on that, but it sounds like just she knew that the sphere must have thought that this was going to play out one way, and then Tarna changed all that in her timeline, which then changed it in for this little girl. That's the only way I can see it, because the sphere seemed very shocked that it was going to end up dying and blowing up. So I had no idea that was going to happen. So that was kind of cool. I thought that was a nice little twist there. And then, of course, the sphere and the house blow up, but the little girl gets out, and
Can like tell when they like blew the house up, like there was an after effect, but that wasn't animated. It was a miniature.
Yeah. And then the little girl, of course, she sees another one of those bird things that Tarna
she has
was,
the
right?
same tattoo on the side of her neck as Tarna had.
Yeah. So she gets on and she flies away. And that's, of course, when her hair kind of changes a little bit. And we realize that she's part of that bloodline that Tarna was. And so it's a really cool movie, very different for its time. And obviously, like I said, the soundtrack is amazing for it. Your final thoughts on it, and what would be your rating?
Final thought, I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, but I feel like this is one where I would like just revisit my top 3 as opposed to the movie again. So for final rating, it's again kind of hard because I did find myself liking segments in this, but I'm still not like into the whole anthology thing, because like my problem with the whole anthology film is I don't mind a series like the Twilight Zone because you get a whole episode, Where with the film, the segments are so short, it's usually once they get good, they're over.
Yeah.
So I'll be nice and give the just based on how much the three I really enjoyed as much as I did, I'll give it a 7.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. I still love this film a lot. I don't visit it too often. I don't know if I really. I mean, it has dated a little bit, so it is a bit tough at times because obviously animation now is a lot better. But I think for the time and the whole the fact that they didn't mind making it rated R was kind of nice too. I thought that was good. I'm still gonna give it like a 9 out of 10, pretty close to a 10. I still really, really enjoy this a lot. I know it's kind of surprised you don't like anthologies too much, but that's an interesting thing for sure. But yeah, I still like this a lot for myself. Anyway, what is coming up on your channel, if anything? What do you plan on doing?
Well, I need to get my Godzilla versus Gigan review done. So I want to continue. My basic goal is I want to be out of the Showa films by maybe mid-June. So I have Gigan, Megalon, Mechagodzilla, and Terror of Mechagodzilla to get through.
Oh, okay, very nice. As for me, obviously, I'll be working on my top 5 music for the week. Obviously, I've also, as Anthony knows, I got a delivery today of a couple more little tarantulas I got to house. I'm going to try my best to see if I can film them while transfer them, but that's always a trick, especially when they're smaller. They're very fast, so I have to make sure I have nowhere for them to go.
You about need someone in there with you recording.
Yeah, it's almost that way. I mean, I might just have to do it to where I get them transferred and then just try to take some video of them when I can and just show everybody. But
you ever thought about doing a video that's like a tour of the tarantula room?
Yeah, actually, I did do a little bit of one the other day because, like I said, whenever I have the lights off overnight, I'd go in there, and if they're all out or most of them are out, I try to go and take a little bit of footage of the video. So I have a little bit of video footage I did the other day. I was going to tie it in with these new ones that I got, and maybe I'll post it up later today. But it's not going to be anything fancy, but it'll give people a chance to kind of see some of the spiders I have in there and what's been going on. Like I said, the OBT doesn't come out too often, so it's hard to really get him on film unless it's like a picture that just happens to be there when he's out. But we'll see how it goes. Tomorrow, Mr. Tony and Dead and I, at least is planned right now. There are 2 Ghouls of Midnight that will be taking place. Both will be recordings. The first one I'll be doing is Blood Stalkers from 1976, which is my pick. And then later we'll be doing his, which is Dream Scenario, starring Nicolas Cage, which I have not seen before. So should be interesting. Then Thursday, I'll be hooking up a Sci-Fi Century for my next Kaiju Spotlight, and we'll be doing Titanosaurus from Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, Terror of Mechagodzilla. So we'll be doing that. And then I think Anthony's with me on Friday for the retro movie show for Legend. Are you part of that with Kevin Lambert?
I'll need to get a link to watch it.
Same here. I'll have to talk. I don't have it myself either. So
I've actually never seen that one before.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty good film. I don't know if I feel as strongly as some people about it, but it's decent.
I know it's one of Tim Curry's most well-known roles.
Yeah, outside of Rocky Horror, yeah.
It was kind of funny. I was reading something about the It miniseries, and because of Legend, he swore he never wanted to do anything with prosthetics again.
Yeah.
And then he gets cast in it, and he still had to have the prosthetics, only they were nowhere near as extensive.
Oh yeah, yeah. He has massive horns, and I don't even know if that was awkward for him to have to. Because I mean, they're not going to be super heavy, but they're still awkward.
Imagine it probably still wouldn't have felt good on the neck.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Depending on how long you had to be in it and all that. Oh. Anyway, as usual with this show, I've got a nice little tribute clip to the movie at the end here for us. And so, again, hit the like and subscribe button. And please go to Anthony Jordan's page and hit the like and subscribe to his channel as well. And we'll see you next time here on the Middletown Radio podcast. Take care of yourselves.